Hello, everyone. Welcome to my weekly recap of Trinidad Bhojpuri Words and the Phrase. I should let you know this is our 10th weekly recap video. 10 weeks of doing these weekly recaps. And a listener in New York who keeps up with us every day reminded me that we have crossed 100 Trinidad Bhojpuri Words so far. That is fantastic news. So thank you so much. I'm really happy about this project. And it's because of you. You bring this to life every day and every week. Every time you make a comment on the post, whether it's to give us what you think the answer might be, or if you want to share a memory with us, or simply saying, I don't know this word, I've never heard this before, I'm not familiar with this word, you create a conversation. And we have made so many nice friends, not just here in Trinidad and Tobago, but folks outside of Trinidad and Tobago. And for that, we are most thankful. And if we don't take the time to really appreciate our heritage, and in this case, our linguistic heritage, how are we to ever understand our true identity and to even express that? So thank you for being such a wonderful inspiration. Let's get started. I'm Karen Das.
And I'm Dr. Visham Bhimull from Caribbean Hindustani.
So when we choose a word for Monday, we usually like to choose one that everybody would get correct or get right. So we started the week with Parosi, Parosi, and I noted the immediate response for this one. The Parosin, the Parosan, the Parosi, the references made to songs, be it local songs or Bollywood songs. And I also took note of the spelling. Now, conversation heated up on the spelling of Parosi, where some believe there should have been a D instead of an R. So I'm pretty sure this has something to do with the pronunciation. So this would be a good time to bring in Dr. Bhimull.
Right. So people kind of more familiar with the word Parosin. Why? Because it present in Bollywood. There's a song that goes Parosin apne murgi ke rakhna sama apne murgi ke rakhna sama tera murga hua hai divana. That's I think Amitabh Bachchan had a yeah that he was the song was from a movie with him. And then there's Parosin, you're getting on bad, I go do a little obia and throw it in the yard by Tivan Gatu. Right? I think that was the same melody as that song. I think that's where you got it from. So that the reference was the Parosin. So we could learn some grammar here. In is a feminine suffix. So for instance, you'd have words from Patwa like dude or do become dudzin, right? So dude would be my dear whoever, my male, and dudzin would be their female person, right? Boy, no, gilzin again. That's another one where they use an English word and add the in, right? So this is an example where e end in masculines like Parosi, right? It takes the in Parosin, right? In Hindi now it becomes Parosan. Another example is Dulha, Dulhin, or Dulha, Dulhan in Hindi, right? Both exist, but Dulhan is more a Delhi accent. So Parosi, male neighbor, and Parosin, female neighbor.
And the spelling with the D and the R.
All right, so in Hindi there's a thrilled ra, right, which is from original Sanskrit. It exists in most Indo-European languages like Latin. We get it in Spanish. It becomes guttural in French. But the other actually was the intrusion of other languages in that formed Hindi. So the other occurs in lad, ka, right? It occurs in pado, sin, pado, si. It occurs in lakdi. So the thing is that, honestly, looking at the evolution of Trinidad Bhojpuri, that other has been lost and now replaced with a thrilled R, ra, so that even in my interviews, and Peggy Mohan, I think I'd mentioned in one of your posts, she had said that, well, that other does not exist anymore in Trinidad Bhojpuri, so it's just, everybody use, if you say lar, ka, or you say paro, si, right? There's no way of representing that in my in my standard, which I use from Peggy Mohan, the orthography, I use a R with a dot. A lot of people actually represent it with a D, right? So for instance, they use a D to represent that, but you see, the D also represents a dental D, not a retroflex one, and there's also the which is, so to form that order, you take a palatal D, right? Like in Tanda, Thanda, and you put a dot below in the Devanagari script. So a lot of letters that have that dot in Devanagari didn't occur in the original forms of, well, the earlier forms of Abhidhansh that led to the formation of Hindi Hindustan.
Parosi, Parosi, Parosin.
Parosi, Parosin. Yeah.
Okay, so now we have that one right. So Parosin, Parosi. Over to Tuesday's word, Bichwa. Bichwa was the word chosen last Tuesday, and I'm really excited to get Dr. Bhimull's input here because there was one meaning that I had in my mind when I posted the word Bichwa, but going through the response on Facebook, I discovered that there were other interpretations of Bichwa based on the spelling that was provided.
Right, so that it was spelled Bichwa. It's difficult
Correct?
to know if it's aspirated or not. So if the cha is unaspirated, it's just Bichwa, Bichwa, which means the middle. But in aspirated, as which we intended, Bichwa, then it will be a ring worn on the toe. Again, this emphasizes the need for standard orthography in Caribbean Hindustani, Trinidad, Bhojpuri, or at least the Hindustani that we speak here.
Okay, and the spelling of the word without the CHH, Bichwa would just mean middle. But would it be used in the middle? But would it also be used even though you do not have the ch? Would it also be used to mean the ring on the toe?
Yeah, it could mean the same, but it'll be a mispronunciation. Again, that's evolution of language. Again, it will be context, because if you say tor bichwa, right? It could mean your touring, or it could mean, well, your middle, or you're the middle, which just makes sense. So again, you have to be able to speak the language, know the context, so you know which one it is.
Okay.
Right?
All right, so moving on to Wednesday's phrase. We usually have a Trinidad Bhojpuri phrase midweek. So we know what is Saada, but do you know Seeda Saada, which was our phrase last Wednesday?
Right, so a lot of time I ask people if they know what Sada roti is, and they say yes. So I say, okay, so you know what roti is, so what does Sada mean? And well, a lot of people say, well, they thought it meant roti. Sada describes the roti, so Sada roti means plain roti, and it's unaspirated, right? So it's Sada, right? So let's say kapra, for instance, is clothes. If you say Sada kapra, it means plain clothes. If you say Sada admi, admi is man, Sada admi, then it is a simple man, right? A plain everyday individual. They are often compounds in both nouns and adjectives. I guess we'll see more as we do these segments. But so sadha, Seedha, sadha. Sada, and then Seedha, right? Well, Seedha, people know it means in the context of the Hindu prayer. We'll explore that word another time. But Seedha means innocent, simple. So these are a combination of two words that might be quite similar to emphasize, right? So Sada means plain and Seedha means simple. So combining them, Seedha Sada, it means plain and simple, right? Plain and simple. It's a common expression in Hindi as well as, well, our Caribbean Hindustani, and I think that's equivalent in English, because we say yes, plain and simple. So Seedha Sada, right? In Hindi it inflects, so it'll go Seedha Sada, Seedhe Sade, and Seedhi Sadi, right? Seedhi Sadi. So interesting enough, Sada roti becomes Sadi roti in India. So it
Hmm?
shows how in Trinidad Bhojpuri, because there's an adjective that ends in a "a." In Hindi, you have these agreements grammatically, right? So in other words, I in adjectives will inflect in E to describe a feminine word. Roti is feminine, it ends in E. So in Hindi, it would be Sidi roti, not Sada roti. So it emphasizes how in Trinidad Bhojpuri, grammatical gender, just like in English, doesn't exist.
Wow. This takes us to our word chosen on Thursday, Chhutihar. Chhutihar. And this was this was Sada. This was Seeda Saada, plain and simple, Chhutihar. And an interesting word because everyone pretty much said the same thing and gave scenarios that you can use this word to best describe. Chhutihar.
Right. Well, a lot of people has noticed in Fiji, they had said that, well, it related to cha and chatti, but it's not. Um, what we don't realize a lot of times is that cultural traditions were practiced for a social reason in the past, and now it would have lost that because times have changed. So what you they see is that long ago, with the birth of a child or death, there's always this public health issue about, well, the child's immune system not being mature enough so that they don't let too much people interact with the child. And then when somebody dies, it's usually of infectious disease back then. Now it's more non-communicable diseases, which are more common, like cancer, stroke and heart attack due to diabetes and hypertension. Um, so that times have changed now, those not contagious. Whereas long ago when somebody died, um, like COVID, as we go back to those times now, I guess, fewer people could go to funerals. There's certain things they must observe if you attend, like sanitizing your hands, which is kind of reminiscent of what we do as Hindus, right? So
Yes.
people should realize that point, that I'll see the relevance of it. So after saying all that, then Chhutihar means unsanitary or unclean. So within the context of the birth of a child as well as a death, then you would use that term of chutihar to mean referring to something that would be unclean, either to infect a baby or to infect attendees to somebody who died from infectious disease.
Friday, usually a food related word. And this was a taste of nostalgia for so many people. Satwa.
Um, so I'm gonna bring back my memory. I don't know about this. I don't know about this at all. My grandma never used to make it, my nanny. But I have friends from Fiji and Mauritius and Suriname, the Netherlands, who would have come to Trinidad, and I remember carrying them to Maracas and letting them try chili baby. And when they tasted the chili baby, there was like all of them on separate occasions said, "This is satwa," right?
Mm.
And indeed sattu, and that got me doing some research on it because the chili baby we know in our history here would have come from at least what is taught in school from Amerindians because of the use of corn. But the satwa is essentially the same thing. They just mix it and make it into a dough as opposed to a powder. And the only difference is that yes, corn is included. Makai is the Trinidad Bhojpuri / Hindi word for it. But they also include so it is the name Sat or comes from Sat, right? Sattu in Hindi and Satua. Again, we have the wa in
Mm.
Trinidad Bhojpuri in Trinidad Bhojpuri. So Sat means seven. So you include seven seeds that you would grind, right? In different countries, it'll be different seven grains, right? But essentially, it's things like bodhi seeds, chana seeds, corn seeds. Um, I, it varies. I think black eye you also use, urdi, and I can't remember the other two. In Caribbean Hindustani, I actually made a list of them and the differences because in Guyana it was different, Trinidad is different, Fiji, Mauritius, and so on. One thing that important, so people describe it as a snack
Mhm.
or as a dessert because it was sweet. So normally you would grind it up and then um, parch it and put sugar in it, right? With the satwa, now you would actually add milk and water and stuff to make it into these balls. Um, what you must remember is this had a particular use for indentured laborers, because when you were doing hard labor on an estate, eat heavy food wasn't the ideal, because you'll have a full stomach, and it could impede on your ability to do work for a long period of time. I mean, when you eat your body food, you can't work, you have to relax. So these were actually a snack that was power packed with obviously the carbohydrate and protein from the beans themselves, as well as the simple sugar, so that it was quite um, it was the ideal food to probably snack on to get bursts of energy, like people use Monster today or Red Bull. I wouldn't recommend it as a doctor, but maybe Satwa, yes. You can probably use that when you're doing long shifts. Yeah, so it gives bursts of energy, so that more so than regular food, so that your stomach wouldn't be full, but you'll have sufficient energy and feel energetic enough to do hard work.
And it was also using whatever was available, because they would have had whatever greens that they had access to. And if you were making these into little balls, then you would have a few. So you just, as the term today is, you grab and go.
Right, and again, yeah, that's why you would have different seeds in different countries, because what was available. That's why it varies.
Mm. All right, suppose we can still do this. We can make this ourselves. We don't have to limit ourselves to what was used back then. You can use a number of protein-powered powder, because you find a lot of these grains that are available in powdered form now. So you can try this, make this yourself. Have you ever thought about trying this
No,
yourself
I actually
as a
wanted to do
doctor?
some. I wanted. You see, there are a lot of cuisine styles that have been lost,
Yeah.
and we're kind of relatively healthy that we have lost, but because of our Western media and stuff, a lot of them fell out of use and wasn't passed on to the younger generation. But I think it should be a good project to kind of revive it, because remember we looked at Doodh Piti and Dal Piti, and
Yes.
when I looked in other
Adobo.
countries, and Adori, yeah, when I looked in other countries, it actually now became more savoir faire, because they put things like almonds and um, different spices in it. So it actually, like ratatouille, ratatouille was a
Yes.
peasant dish, but now it becomes a savoir faire dish. So in the same way, we could probably look at that in an ode to the ancestors, as well as being proud in their identity from the aspect of cuisine.
I agree. So maybe, okay, so this would be on Dr. Bhimull's to-do list and on my to-do list. It's a nice project. We still have to do the Adori, but we're learning as we go. That wraps up another week of Trinidad Bhojpuri Words and Phrase. And as I mentioned before, we have crossed over 100 words since the start of this project, Dr. Bhimull.
Good, we could probably start writing a dictionary now.
I think so. We can actually create one. Well, we have this audio version of Trinidad Bhojpuri Phrase and Words, and it's doing quite well. So thank you all so much for your participation. Dr. Bhimull, once again, remind our friends how they can contact you.
Right, Caribbean Hindustani on Facebook, as well as the website caribbeanhindustani.org, and we also have a YouTube channel.
Okay. This weekly recap of Trinidad Bhojpuri Words and Phrase is a KDC production in collaboration with Caribbean Hindustani. I'm Karen Das.
And I'm Dr. Visham Bhimull from Caribbean Hindustani.
Catch you next week.